Hello, this is Yannick from WASIO Photography, and this from start to finish we'll go over a photo of our dogs that won the second prize at this year's WPPI print competition. So we will explain how we set up the lights for this photo, what Lightroom adjustments we made, and then how we finished the editing in Photoshop. So this is our final photo that we will show how we went from start to finish. So let me first show you our lighting diagram. So the lighting setup was pretty simple for this photo. We used one studio strobe, which was the Alien Bee Einstein, with a 5-foot octa. And what is important, how we set it up is that we line up the edge of the octa right with the front of the dog, so that all the lights that we're getting, it was really just a feather light that were traveling across. And then we used the a big white wall, movable white wall that we put pretty close, just outside of the frame, to bring back the shadows back into the dog, so that the light was directional, but still was, the shadows were pretty well lit. But that was really it. And then we photographed the whole session with our Pentax 645Z, and we used the lens. I believe it's a 105. So it's not the macro one, not the 90 macro, but the 105. And we kept a pretty long distance. So I think probably our camera. I mean, I was more at the end of our studio, because this is a pretty long lens, and we photograph at shutter speed of 100. So uh, I don't know if you know, but the Pentax sync speed is 125th. So we're just slightly below, but it didn't really matter because we didn't use any ambient light, so it was, we lit this photo purely with the strobes. So the sync speed did not matter that much here. I mean, the shutter speed did not matter that much, and we photographed this at f8. We wanted to have a very good or very deep depth of field, so that all the dogs from the front till the back are practically in focus, and we knew that they would be moving, so we wanted to have to minimize the margin of error to have them out of focus. So that's why we opted for f8 to have most of it in focus, and then ISO 100 to get the top quality here. So let me show you how many photos we shot for just this one setup. So altogether, you see that we photograph 20 frames, and out of this 20 frames, we selected the last one as it was our favorite one. So it started like this. We kept, try to keep them first looking at this direction, then maybe more in front, then kind of, we figure out, what we can, do to kind of look, for them to look in different directions. And you can see in the first few frames, uh, so this is Sparkle and this is Ken Lee. So Sparkle's ear was not where we wanted to be, so we kept it. We fixed the ear, but now Sparkle's head was, too much in front of Ken Lee, so he was blocking his light too much. So we kept few frames, and then we repositioned them again, and now their faces are more in line. And we did this was the one before the our selected one, and this was our selected one. So basically, what we like about this photo is that the good triangle composition that basically Kenley and Sparkle give us here. So there's a triangle here with their faces, and there's also the whole triangle of their body. So we like that we have two triangles here made out of those dogs. So that made it a much stronger composition for this photo. So let me show you what adjustments we made in Lightroom. This is straight out of the camera. So you see that we do have all the details in the highlights. The shadows are a little bit too dark, so we wanted to get all the details out of the frame. So what we did here, let me just scroll up for the post-processing. So first thing, we cooled down a little bit the white balance. I think it was a little bit too warm to my taste. We raised up the exposure by half a stop just to move those midtones more toward the center. And then for highlights and whites, we practically move all the way to the left to the max, and then shadows we move to the right to open up the shadows as much as we could, and the blacks we barely moved it, to a little bit make them darker. But with the Pentax, the fuzz are such a great quality that we really can move those sliders to their extremes without losing any quality. Let me just zoom in here, just to show you, that there's still very good details in the highlight and a very good details in the shadow. So you can see, that it's very sharp, and everything is with great details. I mean, those are 50 meg files, so obviously the details is there, but the tonality and the depth, the dynamic range of those files are fantastic. So this is what we did, and the only thing that we adjusted was the sharpening. So we sharpened at 44, and then we kept, as always, the masking pretty high. So you see, if you press Alt key and then click on the masking, you'll see that we just kept the sharpening really at the edges of the dogs. So not to sharpen anything extra. So this is all the adjustments we made in the Lightroom. So let's move now to Photoshop and see what were the final steps to edit this photo. So this is, let me just undo it here. So this is the first layer is straight out of what we got from Lightroom. The first step, what we did is we ran the Nick Color Effects Pro 4, and we used the detail extractor. And you can see, if I'm going before and after, you see that we applied the effect only to the dogs. We didn't do any detail extractor on the background, since there were, it's a painted background, a painted canvas. We didn't want to bring any more artificial detail from it, so we masked out the background and we kept only the filter on the dogs. So definitely that made their furs and the colors much more dramatic. It definitely started to make the photo pop a little bit more. Then the next step was about color grading. So we used 3 adjustment layer: selective color, hue saturation, and photo filter. So with the selective color, we ran it at 50%, so not to go too crazy with adjustments, but we made the main adjustments in the red channel or red color and in the yellow color. And basically what we wanted we were playing with the sliders to see where we like, how the photo feels, what is the most natural color that we were getting for Sparkle and Lee here. And then the last adjustment, we went to the black color and moved the yellow slider slightly to the left to bring the shadows to be a little bit more blue. So you see that this is before, and if you move it, more to the left, the shadows become bluer and bluer. So we barely move it. I think it's like, what do you have, like -4, -5 here, to make the shadows a little bit bluer. So this is before and after, before and after. So the photo's cooler, but not, it's very subtle. It's not too dramatic. Then the next layer is the hue saturation. What we did here is very simple. We just desaturated a little bit overall the whole photo. We did -11, so it just becomes a little bit less saturated. So it was just their furs were a little bit too yellowish still, so we reduced the saturation. And then the last step, we applied at 30% a warming filter, to bring some of the warmth that we had originally, but in a more controlled manner, so we can see where we liked it the most. So this is everything that we did in terms of color grading here. So this is after and this is before. So you can see it has a little bit more of a nicer bluish or cooler feel to the background, but the dogs are still, still pretty warm, but more natural colors. I think this was way too yellow and too saturated to my liking. And then the next step, we just what we did with the two curves, one to brighter the dogs, and the other ones to darker the dogs. And I actually have an action where I select with the lasso tool, the subject, very, very roughly. And I have an action that feathers this selection by 200 pixels to make it a very smooth selection. And then it creates those two curves, one to brighten the center or whatever I selected, and the one to darken the remaining of the frame. So if anybody's interested in this action, I'll be more than happy to share it. So just leave a comment and let me know whether you're interested. So the first one, so the brighter, you can see that it just brightens the dogs. The second curve is just darkens the background. But after running these two, I saw there's still like a little bit of a halo around the dogs that I didn't like. It was just a little bit too much. So I created a dodging and burning uh, medium gray layer in soft light um, layer mode, and I just fixed the halo that I have around the dogs. I also make it a little bit, the eyes here, brighter, and then also this part of Sparkle's face. So you can see that, it's a little bit, brighter. And then I even out, the fur here, of Kenley's, because it was a little bit too distracting comparing to the face. So this is what it looks like. And the whole curves and dodging and burning, the difference is this. So it just brings more attention to the dogs, and then so that you go automatically to their eyes. And then the next layer was you see this edge of the background. So what we did here is just this is the fixing of the background, so that it's a nice edge to the floor, and also remove. There's a lot of dust, and rather it's not so much dust, but those are the leftovers of crackers that we were feeding the dogs to stay and reward them that they were doing what we want them to do. And then, so this was just to remove it, and also to remove, you notice here that I have this, I forgot to remove this plastic on the crate. So this basically removed this plastic. So nothing crazy, just use some sample and the healing brush to remove all the distraction to make the floor clean. And then the last step was to just sharpen. So we used the um, high pass filter on the soft light layer, and we sharpen it. This one, because it's such a huge file, we use the high pass, I believe like at 4.5 pixel radius to make it sharper. Because if you go to the file and you do image size, you will see that this file is pretty big. The height is 8200, over 8200 pixels, and the width is 61. So it's definitely a very very large file. So that's why we had to sharpen much more than like a file from our Canon or Sony, because the files are much smaller for those cameras. So this is the files. Let me give you again a quick before and after. So we started with this, and with adjustments we ended up with this photo. We printed it again at home on our Epson R2880, and we used the Hahn&Mühle photo rack matte paper. It did print well, but I learned through the competition that probably this photo would have been printed. I mean, would have had better results on the Luster paper, because there's so much dark areas, and matte paper does not reproduce shadows that as well as the Luster paper. So probably if I had to enter it again, probably I would print on a Luster paper. So this is it. This is the from start to finish of our photo of Kenley and Sparkle. Um, if you have any questions, as always, please leave a comment below, and we're always happy to answer any questions you have. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're interested to see any future videos when we take our photos from start to finish. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.